Hi there, let us continue tutorial 5 where we're working with the deeper notions of food, and I've decided to call it that. So I was working with the whole kind of concepts of plants and what's behind it, and similar to plants in our living room, flowers, insects, everything that is on this planet, whatever we are dealing with as part of our environment, no matter what it is, there is always code systems to it. I'm here saying always because that goes without saying. It's kind of a law in that manner. There's a specific type of buildup that goes in a trinity structure. So we have the matter form inside the enclosure, and we have some sort of energy system behind it. We have some sort of faction, origin, template, architecture, purpose, function behind it. And most of the time, not always, but most of the time is tied up to some kind of technology, either as part of the artificial fourth or artificial fifth, or part of the original outer domain technologies that were part of the restoration program. So that's a discernment that we have to make. And that's why we took off last, where I talked about taste and smell as discernment tools to know what's good for us and what's bad for us. Of course, if we become completely imbalanced in our emotional field, and we have created belief systems that this is good or bad for us. Technically, people that have lived on very, very unhealthy food, they think that that's good for them. They like the taste of it. They have become addicted to the different chemicals that are in it. Their brain is telling them that they need it. And if you give them an apple or something that's really healthy, their body will reject it. The energetic parasites in them will reject it. And that's an important thing for those of you who choose to work with food and want to go into the ideas that you can actually assist people in gaining better health. It's from my perspective, as well as this is kind of a Danish approach, and it is going to get more prevalent and predominant in the rest of the world as we get more and more into those of us who are doing the transition. We begin to understand that it's our energy system that is the main factor and the main provider of what we call a resilient physical form that will be able to withstand the transition dynamics. Not food in itself, but we can use food as a supplement, as an addition, as something that we can use as what we call definitely a tool, but a supportive tool, but only if we are working correctly with our energy system. Food in itself will then, if we are, for instance, if people are energetically, parasitically high loaded, they have a high level of distortion in their emotional field. They have a high, very little developed type of mental processing. And that's why I would say high level of distortion in the mental field, are tying into all of these belief systems of what they are finding on the internet, whatever. Typically, most of them are clones anyways, or so distorted that they have lost the ability to balance out their homeostasis system, where the body has completely lost the ability to figure out what's good or what's bad for it. In terms of health, I talked about earlier on, as well as footballers, they learn to endure an enormous amount of pain, including athletes and others. So their pain system is put out of balance as well. They can endure an enormous amount of pain, similar to soldiers and what have you. So you could say, is that a good tool or a bad tool? Well, that's kind of where they have learned to work with the mental processes behind pain, and have learned to say, well, pain doesn't kill me, seriously, because they've got so used to it. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? That desensitization of their physical form, to some degree it is. So to some degree it's a good thing, to some degree it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing because the natural warning system that should put them into flight mode has been overridden to such a degree that they're literally just standing there taking one beating after another, which then eventually will break down the body in different forms of psychological trauma, which we're also seeing once they get out of that stressful environment where you're talking soldiers and get back into a peaceful environment. Then the body will collapse that system because it's artificial. The body's not meant to endure that enormous amount of pain. It is supposed supposed to protect itself as a fear-based protection mechanism that goes with the limbic system, that goes with what we could say a kind of preservation, self-preservation system that is built into the organic form. We can definitely transform that, but in a balanced manner. So we can say there are all of these imbalances that we're seeing around. This does not make them good. It just means that they are imbalanced. Similar to people that are training a lot, they are building up a very crystalline type of muscle structure, which allows them to lift enormous amount of weight. But the body will naturally try to get back to a different type of body feature that is part of its original template. And here we go and say, okay, what is the original biofield template? Well, that ties into our previous lives. It ties into what we have been, how we have worked with our organic vessels in previous lifetimes. That determine what kind of body we have now, or at least as those of us who are born under the old world order scheme, because the ones that are being born from what we could say 2000 and onwards, they are on either hybrid templates, they are tied up to parallel realities, they are part of the parallel universal matrices, they are part of new different types of enhancement projects and onward and so forth. So these dynamics do not really apply to them anymore. That's also why into many of the young people that are now tying into the old spiritual programs, they will discover that that will not work for them, and then they will either just discard it and work with whatever's in them, or they will come up with some new ideas. So overall speaking, everything is in transition as it is. So when we again, when we again talking about food, and we're talking about health, and we're talking about what to digest and what not to take in, and the first step of everything that we're doing, whether we're working with food as part of our own little project, or we're working with food as a mean of a business, because we feel that that's where we have our skill sets, as I did with being a wise woman, where I did not trade the herbs, but I was working with it definitely, and working with people that came to me, and they would always bring some kind of food or something that we could exchange, so that they would give me something that would ensure my continuation as a being inside this reality, and not money, but different forms of natural goods that would be handed over, and I would hand over my expertise or the herb, which would then have been imbued with different forms of energies that I would have worked with as part of the transformative features of the crystalline structure of it, as well as the information I would get from the original planes that were now stuck in nature as part of the nature spirits or nature devas. Even though devas are technically a different bunch because they come from Asia. So we could say nature spirits in the Western world that used to be part of the original Pleiadian transformative sciences. And with that actually imbued with light codes that I could put into the herbs and not embed them into the herbs, which was done during the times of not necessarily Atlantis. They began the sciences of being able to use symbols to capture things, but later on with the magicians, later on after the reseeding, we're beginning to track down these remnant fragments and remnant energy clusters of these original beings that chose to go into the astral plane, and a whole hunt that was set in to track them down and capture them via symbols into different amulets and figurines and what have you, to enforce and imbue the environment with transformative energies, especially for the ones that have lost it. So that's some of the negative Egyptian magic that arose as part of the reseeding, including the Magis of Mesopotamia and onward and so forth that were reseeded Atlanteans that were not ready to let go of their project, but now tinkered with it and changed it into some kind of exploitation of not only reality energies, but now everything that they could get their hands in that would give them back their power and glory of the days of Atlantis. So this is also to be taken into consideration when we do work with food, or we do buy into people that are saying, oh, I'm working with this, I can do this with that with it, or what have you. Then the discernment is, of course, to, as they say it in Japanese, smell the being, smell that human. What is the smell of that person person, is it a good smell or a bad smell, which I think is an interesting way of perceiving a kind of evaluation of another person. How does he or she smell? It's not just physical smell, it's also kind of psychological smell. It goes with the idea of discernment of, well, when I'm around a person, if I get this otherworldly smell coming from that person and it makes me feel nauseous, then I know this person is highly astrally imbued with very negative type of astral energy, because smell is a vibration. So that goes with what we call a subtle energy, that our nose, the hair in our nose catches the physical smell. That's smell is a waveform. It's particle, but it's in a waveform because it flows through the air, right? These are aerosols that flows through the airs and then are being picked up by our nostrils. But the same idea goes with what we call emotional distortion, astral smells. So it goes on the vibration, it goes with the oscillation, and by that our sensing system, as part of the expanded version of peripheral nervous system and our expanded version of the emotional field, if we have cleared it, we will then begin to pick up on other levels of smells that are connected to the emotional field of that human being and the different layers of it, all depending on how far we have expanded. So if we're only in our physical form, we will smell people with what they present inside the enclosure. If we have got clairvoyant abilities and we have expanded our empathic abilities, we will pick up on these levels of the other person. If we have expanded into the astral plane, we will pick up on that level from these people. If we have expanded into past lives, we will pick up on that level of these other people, and onward and so forth. So it all depends on our expansion field and how much we have developed our abilities to process information and energy on the different rings of our expanded field of awareness that goes with the inner higher level types of energy systems. It all comes down to that, and the way we work with our neural network to connect it to the other structural layers, which I talk about both in the Future Human courses, as well as Future Human Project courses, as well as in the free material, as well as in the basic energy work material, as well as in the tutorials and the transition science course material. It all depends on the level that we have activated, that ties into what we can experience of reality. So that's relative reality. So the more closed down and clogged down we are, the more we will perceive within what we have activated with the tools that we have available on this level of our physicality or emotionality or mental concepts. Hence, a good idea is to become in that state of progression all the time, not cling on to certain ideas or certain concepts or certain value systems or certain emotional reactions, but constantly investigate whatever we're dealing with, so we will expand our perception and awareness of what we're dealing with on the different levels that everything has. Everything has different layers to it. Even the cup in my living room has different layers to it. I can connect to whether these understandings are part of my already existing belief system, such as the IKEA thing, because I've looked at their website and thereby know what they're dealing with, or dismantling that one and then go behind and say, who's actually behind IKEA? Well, to a large degree, scavengers. So that's not what they are putting out their website, right? That's the faction. But we can go further back then that's clone, that's the artificial fourth. Well, then we say, well, all the IKEA furniture, is that what actually ties me into the clone level? No, I got the clone level activated because I went to Australia, where they remodified my energy system to be able to work on the artificial fourth, because that was some of the factions down there that thought that was a good idea, so it could clear out some of the insectoids in Australia stuck to their clones, which they have tied into the artificial fourth, which they tracked or sold off as part of the colonization that came with the Draco. So they did that so I could release them. So hence I got access to that level of reality. Not by my choice, again. So with that understanding, also saying, okay, so this is all about where we take everything that we're experiencing, of course, utilizing it for investigation and understanding, and break it down and transform it, not cling on to it, not say, oh, cool, and I know how to get access to the clone level, but actually also say, this is just another part of the journey of progression to be activated, to be worked with, to be cleared out, to be transformed or transmuted, to let go of, or to integrate. Which one is it? And that's what discernment is, not just the taste that goes with the vibrational field, which goes with the astral field, which goes with our taste of food. Again, so that's emotionally based. But smell is mental based. So that means smell connects to what we could call mental construction, belief systems. What we feel smells good or bad is part of a mental construction. And you will kind of know that, except if you talk about rotten food. Yes, then the smell ties into technically the taste buds that tells us don't eat this. But when we talk about smell and perfumes and furnitures and what have you, gasoline, whatever smells are out there, they are tied to the mental field, and they are tied to mental constructions, and they are tied to belief systems, and they are tied to ideas of how we perceive reality as either this or that. There are some people that actually like the smell of gasoline, for whatever reason that is. Just to put it that, even though they can't eat it, they like the smell of it. So we can begin to investigate, why do they like the smell of it? But it could also just be some kind of enigma or conundrum or an anomaly or what have you. It doesn't need to be higher level than that. But it's still worth of investigating, and to some degree actually look at that human that actually, I like the smell of gasoline. Well, perhaps that human actually is connected to some kind of craft and is an extension of an AI system. Then that would make sense, right? Kind of a what do you call a cyborg. I like the smell of gasoline because it makes my joints work better. I don't know if it is that way, but these are some of the answers that might come up. And again, investigate these answers. Are they just kind of a program we tap into that then gives us that answer? Or is it actually the crystalline structure that's going? How does crystalline structures work with smell and discernment? For instance, is that a way to cloak something so we won't get into, for instance, the smell of gasoline as either good or bad smell? Is that to either get us tied into some kind of belief system or make us reject that belief system? So that's also an investigation that needs to be made when we also talk about smells of food or smells of whatever we are dealing with, smells of other people, smells of items, smells of soil, smells of plants, and onward and so forth. Always do the investigation. So how do we tie that into if we choose to work with food and other people? And that's, I haven't got the answers on that one. Because for me, first and foremost, some of you that choose to work with nutrition as a means to assist other people in getting a better health, we can ask the question, is that even the correct purpose and function? If we kind of understand we're working with people that are already having such a degree of distortion in them, and they have so many energetic parasites, and they prefer to dumb down their emotions instead of working with them by ingesting food, many of them are reluctant to work with it psychologically. So how are we even going to get them to work with it energetically? Some of them are that because of past lives actions, and they have a very large energetic naga in them that in the old Indian communities were a raja and exploited other people, and thereby have now downsized itself to this blob of parasites because of so much wrongful use of energy. So there's karma involved there as well. We can't say to the clients that comes in and say, I want a better health. Say, well, sorry, dude, I can't help you because you have to deal with your own karma first before you get better health. How many people will buy into that one, right? Or they come in and we heal on them and we see this nasty, disgusting parasite that's attached to them because their soul is so contaminated due to all sorts of wrongful decisions. Say, well, sorry, dude, I can't help you because your soul is so shitty. That's why your body is shitty. So again, and we don't say that. We can't say that, right? We have social skills. We have kind of a social responsibility. We don't say that to people. It's not okay to say that to people. Plus, in terms of the transition dynamics and where we are now as part of society, the ones that will do the transition, most of them have already begun naturally to become plant-based, naturally to work on their health, naturally to ensure their health is in a better place, and are getting naturally into the understanding of working with food and health in a different manner, because they're tapping into the new sciences. Whether these new sciences, part of parallel universal matrices and the hybrid programs, that where the hybrids, they need to eat differently. They can't eat junk food. They can't eat all that unhealthy, because they are based insectoidally on, that's the main feature of their hybrid forms. That's insectoid genetics. So they need to eat something in a specific way that ensures their health, which is some of the new products that are coming up. And technically the marketing behind that is for hybrids, not for old world order people like us. If we eat it, it will actually have the detrimental effect in our biology. So again, understanding what program is behind this type of food and what's the code systems of it and what's the agenda, what's the purpose of it. So we don't just tie into blindfolded, oh, this is said to be healthy. No, healthy for who and for what purpose? Again, if we do choose to work with people and nutrition, then we need to understand part of what program we tie into, as if still working with the old world order program where people are still paying off, so to speak, their karma and still haven't learned the lessons. Are we really going to put our energy into that? And then people say, no, I can't be that harsh. I can't be that cold. I can't do that. Well, then the choice is made by that. Then that's kind of still the need to assist and help and fix things for others, which should be looked into. Why is there this need to assist others on the path of karma or on dharma, on the livelihood of the way people live? Why is the need to fix other people, to help other people? And you say, well, that's part of compassion. And I would say, is it the correct use of principle 2? Is it actually, or is it an energetic parasite in you that gives people value if they assist others in growth, or give them value if they heal others or fix others or clear out their emotional structures or what have you? As we said in the old world program, it can still be used for good though, but it is kind of fix you, fix me. We help others to help ourselves. We work with other people as a mirror to some of the issues we're dealing with ourselves. And as long as that understanding is there, well, then it's at least what we could say a kind of exchange rate that is in balance, because you know this also has to do with issues that you have in the understanding that whatever comes your way is something that's tied to your energy field as well. So if we have a dietist that is so skinny and appear to be skinny and appear to be healthy, there are actually people that are very skinny that have an energy system of an enormous fat entity. They're greasy and very disgusting, even though they have this little tiny, tiny body. But they're so focused on keeping this little tiny, tiny body, typically insectoid avian based, that they are not seeing that enormous parasite that's behind them. And that's why they constantly, as a nutritionist or as a health promoter or whatever, drags people to them that are unhealthy, that are full of energetic parasites, because there's an affinity there. So that should also be seen. So in a way that if we are fully healthy and fully on top of our own energy system, we will technically not draw anything else in due to the law of affiliation and the law of affinity. We'll only drag in people that are similarly healthy, that are on the similar path of what we need to deal with. So we have that whatever comes into us, the law of both the law of proximity, but also of what we call principle 4, I forgot the word of it right now, but where it's mirrored back to us. We will draw things into our vicinity, that's the law of proximity, into our influential sphere that matches the levels that we have to work with. And if we can kind of say, I want to work with the nutrition, well, the first self-investigation should be, why do you have the need to teach others how to eat healthy? And look into that. As in, why do you want to fix other people? Because they should know it themselves. Look at the mirror. Go in and look, why am I having this kind of physical form that looks that way? Why do I have these blockages of not seeing it? People that gain weight, they have a tendency to stop looking themselves in the mirror. I know that dynamic, and eventually they make up, whenever they see themselves in the mirror, they make up this blockage that kind of completely stops them from seeing that they are completely growing out of form, and they have health issues and their knees are painful. but they just completely block that and are creating a thought form where they see themselves that this is okay, I can do this. Or people that smoke cigarettes, it's all good. It doesn't affect me like it affects other people, or people that are alcoholics. Oh, I can do this. I'm not addicted to alcohol. And all of these different distorted thought processes that allows people to continue their bad habits. So the first step of, if we are to work with people to gain better health or get out of addictions, whatever it is to point out to them all of their bad habits. And most people, that's where they need to go into the psychological work. Why do I have this bad habit? Why am I malnutritioning myself? What kind of what we call emotional patterns are behind that? What's the psychology behind that? What kind of traumas do I have with me from this life and past lives? Why is it not natural for me to take care of my own body because this is the only one I got in this life? Why is it this slow suicidal tendencies? What is that about? Why this self-destructive way of treating the body or treating our emotional field or mental field or whatever it is with our belief systems and our emotional value systems and the way we respond to our own physicality? And onward and so forth. And the first big difficult thing when we talk about people and food and healthy food is that the first important step is to learn to be kind to our own body, to learn to not drive it to its knees all the time, to learn to listen to the needs of our body, not as in kind of, oh, I need chocolate, but the needs of I need to poo, I need to pee, I need to sleep, now I need rest, now I need care, now I need healing, now I need to be balanced, now I pick this one up, please help me clear out the energetic parasite because it's eating its way into my molecular structure. Learn to communicate with your body, not as an entity. It technically does have an entity in it, but you can learn to communicate with it in a balanced way where the body and you work together, where the mind and the emotions and the body, the three lower fields, begin to work as a unity, as a collaboration for what we call the optimal condition to reconnect to the holographic energy system, the higher lead energy system. We're not working to gain longevity. We're not working to become better people. We're not working per se. We're not working to not have fear or all of these emotional responses, which are avoidance responses. We are working to unify our fields so they become the correct vessel, which is the true understanding of the correct bowl, that the golden cup that will integrate the soul or the six-layered energy system, because that's the same. The soul and the six-layered energy system is the same. So that will be integrated into this physical form. That's the first step of everything we do, is to reconnect to the higher order energy system, the transformative energy system, unifying the three lower fields by our activation and clearing work so they can function correctly inside this reality from where we can begin to do the transition. And with that, sometimes we will gain better health. Sometimes we'll have periods of worse health because we're clearing out different levels of our past lives that will affect our molecular state and make us weak and make us sick and create disease. All of these things to be activated, to be cleared, and to be distorted, so to speak, working with the distortion energies to be cleared or transmuted. And normally when I say transmute, I here talk about the evaporation feature of it. So all of these different levels must be going. We must go through these levels and not have fear of them, but instead learning to work with them as a feature that is there rising up to be cleared out. Not get afraid of it, not try to avoid it, not try to go against it. And here we can say we know nothing lasts forever, because once we have learned the true transformative dynamics, we also understand that whatever surfaces has a period of time as long as it has energy that feeds it. So our investigation process is there to find the energy that feeds it, the whatever the energy pattern is, but also what feeds the energy pattern. Is it a mind faculty, or is it a belief system, or is it an emotional system, or is it past life, or is it trauma, or whatever it is? Because we can kind of say we have emotional patterns and we have trauma, where trauma is the one where harm has been caused. So that goes in and makes it more difficult to clear out. Understanding these dynamics, because trauma affects many deeper layers of our higher order energy system. That's why trauma is inflicted upon us, whereas just emotional reactions are mostly just part of the local personality matrix, and many of these dissipates as we go from life to life. So what lingers on are the traumas. And that's why when we talk about past life, we will mostly remember the traumas because that's what has lingered on, and not all the good times, because that was dissolved, because that was what we could say not distorted to the same degree. So that dissolved in the transference of the 3 lower fields from one life into another. So what lingers on are typically the trauma where harm was caused, where the emotional patterns were solidified and crystallized in pain, or in suffering, or in fear, which is why when we talk about past life, that's what we will encounter most of the time. So we might as well get used to dealing with suffering and pain and fear without adding more to it, but actually learn to go in and transform it. And here the loving kindness comes in. That's where we have the heart field activation, where we go in the trauma to give it loving kindness, but not just sit in that what we call bliss state, but actually go in and transform it, work with it, investigate it, figure out what it is it connected to, what are the technologies behind it, what are the energetic parasites, where did it arise from, what was the cause of it, since it now has an effect. And I'm talking about the cause and effect in the HOS updates for 2023, which I later on will put out as a separate course that people can buy, because there's a lot of very valid and important information there that ties into the Food, Health and Environment project. So that will be part of the randigreen.one website, where I will work with past life and the reconfiguration and transition processes. Whereas here, as part of the whole Changemaker project, we're talking about food, health, and environment as part of some of the future sciences that will allow us to get onto the 2025 timeline that will then later on, if we work correctly with that, either lead us through the artificial 5th dimension and clear that one out, as we saw with the 4th cycle dynamics that were cleared out, or should have been cleared out in 2022. And the 2025 timeline allows us to work with the 5th cycle, and with that, the artificial 5th dimension, to clear out our mental perception. So that's where that comes in. And then the Extra Systemic Awareness Forum will then be the future, where we combine all of this and begin to work with the complete reconfiguration that allows us to be part of the outer domain and catch back up what we're supposed to do here, either as part of the restoration program, which has already been touched ground with as part of the 4th cycle, clearing work of the transition sciences and the whole academy, but it can be pushed further into the reconfiguration, where we work with both the reconfiguration of the biofield, the emotional field, the mental field. But that's only possible once you have done the transition science courses and activated your higher order energy system. So again, everything has to be within their boxes, which would be so nice if it could just be on one, where you heard my shoulder pop there, or if it could only be part of one, the whole academy. But the whole academy works through the transition sciences within what we could call the current configuration that leads to the 2025 timeline. And then that's that package that's there. And then we have the outer domain, the extra systemic understanding of the solar system civilizations that have done and are doing the transition. And that's the extra systemic energetic awareness forum, or the randigreen.one, where I will work with the HOPE project, the higher order progressive energies, or the higher order psychic energetic energies of the future human civilizations. And there, the 2025 timeline will then have been completed, and we are now on I begin that project in 2024, and that's a different timeline that leads to the progressive restoration program workstations that were positioned in the outer domain, whereas the 2025 timeline works with some of the 5th cycle features of the outer domain. So again, this understanding that the whole academy works with the spatial features that leads to the 5th cycle, whereas the whole project works with what we call the energetic features that leads to the 6th cycle and the future human civilization. So again, there are these different levels that must be worked on, and they cannot be merged into the same website, because each thing has to be in its own box, because it works with different code systems and different holographic architecture from where these information system can prosper and be unfolded. So this is, again, when we talk about the different levels of energies that we're working with. So later on, for now, when we talk about food as part of the HOPE material, I call it the HOPE project, but technically that will change name and not longer be a project, but actually be a way of living with the progressive energies. At that point in time, as part of the reconfiguration, our 3 lower fields will have been merged together and have thereby created a completely different need for food, a different way of working with food, a different transformative method where food, when we ingest food, we will then begin to work with different features of it, and we will produce completely different type of food that will be more aligned with the transition dynamics, from where we again will begin to understand that yes, we technically have to grow our own food, we have to produce our own food, we have to work within communities or within networks that works with food in a different manner, that are producing it completely differently than it is being produced today, that is not traded in the traditional manner. There cannot be trade of money involved with it, because money has a specific type of energy connected to it. It cannot be traded online either, because that's part of the virtual realities. So that's where the new science is behind energy and reality and manifested reality. So we can say the new science behind holographic reality and manifested reality will begin to kick in to the production and the business models that we can create. And can we even create a business model when we talk about food? Will there even be trade of food? Can we even assist others in helping them with their nutritional issues and what they are dealing with? So that's also some of the purpose and function of working with food that we need to ask ourselves. Is it even an item that can be put into a product? Can we even exchange anything with food other than what we produce ourselves? So that's, and in a way it's a little bit rhetorical, because it's underlining already that since we are at that point are so individualized in our own types of energy system, and reality respond to our energy system, it kind of goes without saying that we will produce our own food. It kind of goes with that. The buying of food from others will be a no-go. The making others produce food for us or cook our meals will be a no-go, because we will then be so energetically sensitive that the only thing that we will allow to come into our physical form and affect our biofield will be something we have worked with from the get-go to the end product of it, from the origin of it to the end of it. The cause and effect will be completely under our control. The spectrum of different layers of energy that is behind the manifestation of that type of food will be something we have administered that is in alignment with our holographic energy system and our code sequences. So that goes into the what and how of the new projects for a better future, that when we talk about food, is it even, again, I'm asking the same question, but here in the context of the what and the how of the new projects for a better future. Thinking about, okay, if we in the transition period decide to work with food for the help of others and learning how to work with food in a nutritious way that aligns with their energy system. From my perspective, the only way we can work with that is if we also add in the progression sciences or the transformative sciences or a new type of spirituality that goes with the understanding of food as part of a transitional tool, or as whatever we will call it in the future, because the future civilizations, they will have a different language that we have now, and they will not call it spirituality. It will not be called New Age. It's not vegan or vegetarian. It will become a completely normalized way of working with energy and matter energy, or energy put into matter manifestation, where it becomes crystallized and where it solidifies, and the whole attempt of ingesting food will then not be because we feel hungry, but because we are adding to different transformational features of our body, where as we ingest a specific type of food that has a specific holographic feature, we will add specific code systems to our biofield, but at the same time also learn to transform that code system as part of our biofield. So that's a whole new way of perceiving food. So with that little thing said here for March, that is what I will add in that context. And I can only recommend you, if you are here listening to this as part of 2023, as part of the course material as it's being launched here in 2023, the ideas that are put in the higher order systemic energetic or the density 1 new reality updates that are running as a sequence throughout 2023. I can only suggest you buy into that material as well. Tie and buy here literally as an energetic exchange rate, getting the information you need to back up what I'm saying here. Or if you're listening to this course material later on in 2024, go to the randigreen.1 website, where the density 1 or DE1 new reality updates are also offered. Go in and buy the course material that will later on come out of the updates of 2023, because I want to put it in as a process. And then later on, if you're listening to this in 2026, then that will be offered as a course material made in 2023, but the information is still foundational for some of the newer concepts that we are working our way towards, because we are in this huge transition period out of the old world order into the new realities. And we are also in the transition of going out of the old type of timeline event energies, the solidification energies, the artificial fourth and fifth dimensions, and going into the original outer domain cycles, where we catch up on what we're supposed to do as part of the fourth cycle with the transformative energy system, getting onto the 2025 timeline, where we work with the dynamics of the mental fields and the original fifth cycle dynamics, which we are learning what that is and what that means as part of our mental capacities that are to get into radiation that works with code system, holographic network, and has nothing to do with the belief systems, but the ability to work with complex information systems as codes and holographic features. And from that, bridge these two levels of the vibrational field that we learn in the fourth cycle, the mental field or the radiation field as we learn in the fifth cycle, and bridge these two together to either do the restoration path or to do the return path, all depending on if you're stellar origin, you do the return path. If your solar system, it's the restoration path, or go into the sixth dimension from where we will leave this system altogether. So with that little thing said here, until next time, take care.